recently in the just begun World Cup. Let me inform you that unfortunately South Africa actually lost their first game to Mexico, and it looked as though other African countries were very happy and glad with the loss that actually happened to South Africa, but maybe because of the repatriation and the go back home syndrome that South Africa has actually had in recent times, and is making some African countries to say you have to go also back home from the World Cup. But this is not supposed to be the narrative for Africa, and that is why we come every day like these from Monday to Friday weekdays to tell you about how much we can love our continent Africa. Well, I'm not here alone this morning. I am Uime Anete, and with me this morning is Simbiat Hamzat. Simbiat, good morning. Glad to have you.
Good morning, Uime. It's been a long time I've been on set,
yeah,
and I'm so glad to be here as well. Well done, and thank you for holding the fort for us while we've been away.
Okay, so maybe I should have actually started with asking you what you brought back home and how you did your celebration of Salah. Well,
the usual. This one I can't even say that this is not the Salah for meat, because everybody knows that it's actually Salah for meat. But I brought a whole lot of things, and we've shared it behind you.
So, but aside sharing a whole lot of things behind me when it has to do with the Salah, maybe let's talk about the impact that this particular one brought to the Muslims and, of course, to Nigeria in general.
Well, I won't lie, it was, I don't want to use the word difficult, but compared to the ones that we've been having in the previous years, this one was way difficult, because we had so many challenges trying to even get the ram, trying to get the things to cook, and everything was super expensive. Not just a little percentage expensive, it was way expensive that you could, even if it wasn't compulsory like Islamically, it's something that you would comfortably cancel because of the cost, and nobody would even judge you because everybody understands.
Well, this is actually where we are this morning, but we'll dive deeply into the conversation as we continue this morning on Razep Africa show. But first and foremost, you know that we always love to take you into Africa and tell you all that is happening in Africa. And today we'll be beginning in Nigeria, where fresh debates have emerged over taxation after the International Monetary Fund advised the federal government to introduce excise duties on telecommunication services and extend the value-added tax to fuel products as part of efforts to boost revenue. The IMF said additional tax reforms would help create fiscal space for development spending and social interventions, while recommending greater use of digital technology to improve tax administration and reduce revenue leakages. The recommendation has, however, sparked strong opposition from telecommunications subscribers, who argue that the sector is already burdened by more than 40 different taxes and levies. They warned that imposing new charges would further increase the cost of communications for millions of Nigerians, even as the IMF urged the government to ensure adequate social protection measures are in place before implementing any additional tax reforms. Still staying in Nigeria, and of course staying now with business, Dangote Petroleum Refinery is moving closer to becoming a publicly traded company, as it seeks to raise around $1 billion through a private shared placement. The fundraising exercise values the refinery at approximately $39 billion, with 3 billion ordinary shares being offered to investors, and demand reportedly already exceeding $2 billion. The funds are expected to support expansion projects, including the investment of logistics, storage, and distribution infrastructure, as well as future petrochemical development. Industry analysts also see the move as a major step towards the refinery's anticipated stock market listing later this year, following its rapid growth since commercial fuel products began in 2024 and its increasing role in reducing Nigeria's reliance on imported petroleum products. And from fiscal policy to migration, South Africa has stepped up the repatriation of undocumented foreign nationals following a surge in anti-immigrant protests across the country. Authorities say 2,745 foreigners have been repatriated within a week after President Cyril Ramaphosa pledged a stronger action against illegal migration while condemning mob violence targeting migrants. Thousands of foreign nationals, including citizens of Malawi, Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, have accepted voluntary repatriation programs organized by their government after facing intimidation and attacks. Although the South African government insists it will not tolerate lawlessness, many migrants say fear and uncertainty have left them with little choice but to return home. And turning to the Horn of Africa, Somaliland's president has made a landmark visit to Jerusalem following Israel's recognition of the self-declared republic as an independent state. Israeli President Isaac Herzog welcomed President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi, describing the relationship as one founded on courage and realism after Israel became the first nation to formally recognize Somaliland's sovereignty. The visit has generated diplomatic reactions across the region, with Somaliland and several other countries rejecting Israel's decision and reaffirming Somaliland as part of Somalia's internationally recognized territory. Despite operating its own government and institutions since 1991, Somaliland had remained without formal international recognition until Israel's move last year. As health concerns continue to dominate part of Central Africa, authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo are facing growing challenges in containing an Ebola outbreak amid widespread mistrust within displacement camps. Health workers say efforts to trace contacts of infected patients have been disrupted after residents rejected Ebola diagnosis and blocked response teams from carrying out investigations. Aid agencies warn that overcrowded camps with poor sanitation and limited access to health care could accelerate the spread of the virus among thousands of displaced persons. Officials also fear that misinformation and repeated attacks on treatment centers could undermine efforts to contain one of the region's most serious public health emergencies. And now, as we end, back here in Nigeria, welcome, where hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets on Democracy Day to protest worsening economic hardship and growing insecurity, turning a day meant to celebrate democratic progress into a call for urgent government action. Protesters in Lagos marched with placards and chanted slogans demanding solutions to the rising cost of living, unemployment, and what they described as the inability of democracy to deliver meaningful improvement to the lives of ordinary citizens. The demonstration formed part of a broader nationwide action by civil society groups marking the June 12th anniversary, widely regarded as a symbol of Nigeria's democratic struggle, while President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his Democracy Day address urged Nigerians to remain united and continue believing in democratic institutions. Many protesters insisted that more than 2 decades of uninterrupted civilian rule must now translate into improved security, economic stability, and better living conditions for the people. And that's where we wrap the news update today. We'll take on a discussion just after this break, but don't forget that today, being Monday, we'll just drive you into agriculture today and tomorrow. Do well to stay tuned and go nowhere.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television. Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe, agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, Channel 365 DSTV, StarTime Channel 276, or YouTube Livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future. In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe, agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, Channel 365 DSTV, StarTime Channel 276, or YouTube Livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode of Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow. Here we promote smart solutions for a greener harvest. My name is Esther Itefia. Remember, this is a media for agricultural development of the Growth for Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, an NGO that is poised to support African farmers in developing sustainable, innovative, and profitable farm practices. Today we are going to discuss about a pertinent topic in agriculture. This topic has been gaining global attention, and it is carbon farming and the future of sustainable agriculture. For a lot of us, we know what sustainable agriculture is and we understand its practices. But for many people, carbon farming is an entirely new concept. Well, let us think no further. We have an expert in the house today who is going to shed more light on what carbon farming is. He's deeply versed in regenerative agriculture, carbon farming, and in sustainable agriculture. And he also works as a senior agronomist with TOBA. Here with us is Mr. Emmanuel Odichukwu.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Mr. Emmanuel Odichukwu, to today's episode of Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow.
Thank you.
I remember the last time I heard you speak, you talked about carbon farming, and I just knew that we had to have you on the show. Welcome once again.
It's my pleasure.
So for a lot of people who do not know about carbon farming, in what simple terms can you explain carbon farming?
Thank you. So let me say, let's contextualize it so that it will be easier. First, let's take it down to, before we say carbon farming, let's look at the primary school definition of, you take in oxygen, you take out carbon dioxide. So human beings take in oxygen, they breathe out carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide we're taking out, plants are taking carbon dioxide and they're releasing oxygen. So that has been established that plants take in carbon dioxide. So if plants take in the carbon dioxide, that's where the concept of, say carbon farming comes in. So in farming, what do? You're seeding, you're planting something, you're planting a seed. So if you say carbon farming, you're saying you're planting carbon. So the carbon that plants have trapped through their leaves, they get to store it in their body, in their trunks, and in the soil. So the soil serves as a carbon sink. So that's where the concept of carbon farming comes from. So when they store up this carbon, then there is other activities that happen where you say, okay, you're calculating the carbon and you're looking at, okay, what are the practices that actually ensure that this carbon that has been captured and stored in the soil is retained there. So that's what carbon farming is about. Carbon trapped and retained in the trunks and in the soil. So that's all about carbon farming.
Right. So plants taking carbon dioxide and they use that in...
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense. So, but in Nigeria today, is it something that we are already practicing, even if we don't call it carbon farming?
Yes. So when you talk about carbon farming, you're not talking about a set of practices which farmers are already doing. You're talking about something like maybe the tilling system. So you're talking about the residue retention. You're talking about intercropping, monocropping. So farmers are already doing these practices. But when you bring it to the concept of regenerative agriculture, carbon farming, you're not looking at how do you synergize or bring these practices together so that they are able to achieve that purpose of carbon farming as it is. So you're looking at, okay, the farmer is not just only doing minimum tillage, because of course heavy tilling will see that the carbon that you've stored in the soil escapes back. So some farmers are doing minimum tillage as a practice. They might be doing it monocropping. Some farmers are doing heavy tillage, and at the end of the season you see them, maybe they take the residue and take it home, they feed their cattle or herds with it.
Yes.
Some they even burn the field. So we're saying in regenerative practices, in carbon farming, you try to bring these practices together so that it becomes beneficial to the farmers. So you say, you advise a farmer, okay, can you do minimum tillage? It depends on the context, the soil texture. That's why you advise, okay, are you doing minimum tillage, or you're telling the farmer, oh, do no till? Some farmers can say, oh, the nature of the soil, you advise, okay, no till can work for you. So minimum till. So minimum tillage, then we now say, okay, intercropping. Improving the relationship between these crops. Legume and cereal relationship. Knowing that one is a heavy nutrient consumer, that's the cereal. So we supplement with legume. Yeah. So a farmer that does only maize or sorghum or millet will advise, okay, can you go with it with granules, with soya bean, with cowpea, depending on the time of the season of the year, since most of our farmers are rain-fed farmers.
That's true.
So at the end of the farming season, the farmer is also advised, okay, since the plants took in carbon dioxide, their leaves, their trunks, are all carbon.
Yes.
So after harvest, you leave the stalks on the field, let it decompose, and add carbon into the soil instead of burning it. It has a lot of benefits. Aside that the farmer is looking at the carbon farming or the carbon credit now, which is like the benefit they get, the financial benefit. You're looking at the benefit to the crop now, that you're improving the soil organic matter now, the soil structure. You're improving the soil structure where microorganisms can live better, interact better in the soil, which helps in the activities of the plant. And you see the benefit also to the soil, and then the benefit that comes financially at the end, which is called the carbon credit.
So that means that already we practice carbon farming, but we do not really know that this is it. Like from what you said, the monocropping, the crop rotation, and intercropping. But with the current challenges in agriculture here in Nigeria, such as soil degradation and climate variability, how can carbon farming be relevant in improving the farming system of Nigeria?
So thank you. So when you talk about soil degradation, that's where the advice to leave residue comes in.
Okay.
That's where the advice to do minimum tillage comes in. So that by the time you reduce the tilling, is it that minimum tillage or reduced tillage, you get to preserve the topsoil. So if erosion comes, the residue you've left help to preserve the topsoil. The reduced tillage help to preserve the topsoil. So that with that minimal disturbance to the soil, you retain the topsoil. So there is no soil degradation, as the case may be. Erosion is not happening there. You're improving the soil texture and all that have to do with it. The microorganisms are doing better in the soil. So we see that these have benefits as it is. Even the climate, because when we talk about carbon credits, it is funds that are released by companies that are trying to offset, or organizations trying to offset their carbon footprint. Yes. So when they bring those funds, that's where you can say, okay, you have something to even compensate farmers that are doing these practices. Yes. So that is how it plays out.
Wow. Well, you are the expert on the on ground. How realistic can this fit into the smallholder system in Nigeria? Because the smallholder farmers are actually the majority of the farmers here in Nigeria.
So currently we work with smallholder farmers. Okay. So it fits in perfectly into the activities of smallholder farmers. You can see that a farmer that has 1 hectare, 2 hectares, they could better be advised that, okay, on this 1 hectare, you can intercrop maize with maybe soybean or groundnuts or even beans. So in this intercropping, they get to maximize that space. They get to have that benefit of harvesting 2 crops or 3 crops in the same season, and they run concurrently. So one doesn't affect the other. So thereby improving or increasing the benefit they get on the space of land where they are supposed to maybe do monocropping. The soil is preserved from minimum tillage. The soil is also, that soil preservation and conservation, and the residue that is left at the end of the farming season is something that now adds that carbon to the soil. It's not an immediate benefit, but it takes like maybe 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the project. Yes. Then the farmers can start getting the benefit. But it goes beyond even the practices I'm mentioning. There is agroforestry and there are other practices that also come in as part of the carbon farming activity. So it's a lot of practices.
So which of these practices can you say that Nigerians can immediately start adopting that is very easy for adoption right now?
So farmers are already adopting. So across the north, you see, let's say like the north, you see like that practice of intercropping, minimum tillage, residue management. Farmers are already adopting these practices. When you go to the southern part of the country, you can see agroforestry thriving there, or reforestation thriving there. Biochar is for regions or areas where they are doing, let's say like Akwa Ibom, and where in the east, where they have a lot of palm trees, they have palm kernels. All these are transformed into biochar, which is sent back to the field. So it depends on every project because it's vast. The certifiers have, they call it methodology. So they have different segments for these practices where the project can decide, okay, I'm picking this part to focus here. So some can say I'm focusing on agroforestry, some can say I'm focusing on land management and improvement. So it depends on where you pick. You focus there, you pick the practices that are applicable. So farmers are already doing these practices depending on the project that approaches them and the methodology that applies to that region and the farmers in that region.
Carbon farming is a very big concept, but it is, from what you've said, it is very important for the average farmer to practice it for long-term sustainability. You talked about carbon credit and finances, and I'm sure a lot of our audience who are watching would want to key into it and are curious to know the benefits and all. But for today, this is where we'll put a stop to the conversation and we'll discuss that in the next episode. It has been an insightful conversation with you. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel.
It's my pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So that's it for today's episode on agriculture for today and tomorrow. Let us meet same time 11:15 a.m. on Friday where we'll discuss more about the benefits, income opportunities that are available in carbon farming and sustainable agriculture as a whole. My name is Esther Itifia, your host. Thank you and see you next time.
In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative and powered by smart solutions from the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe. Agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, Channel 365 DSTV, StarTime Channel 276 or YouTube Livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Very glad to welcome you back. That has been Agriculture Today and Tomorrow. And like I always say, and maybe for the future, but we're back from that segment, and I hope that you enjoyed having information about what agriculture is and how you can actually do when it has to do with agriculture. And maybe for those of us who are actually farmers, real farmers, we would have learned a whole lot from it. And maybe going forward, we hope that you would reach out and get to know a whole lot about agriculture, and we will not fail to tell you. Don't forget that that program returns on Friday, and we're hoping that we'll have someone sit here to talk more about what agriculture is today and what agriculture holds for us as a country and as individuals tomorrow. Still with me this morning is Simbiat Hamzat, and we are going to have a discussion. Simbiat, once again, how is agriculture in your own area?
Well, I live in an urban area, so I don't even see agriculture except what I see on TV or what I see online.
But you get to eat things that are actually produced from the agricultural sector.
But physically planting and the likes, it's been a long time.
So you've not actually had maybe an experience of having to do agriculture itself, maybe from years back?
Well, maybe secondary school practical, but not since I've grown.
So there has not been an experience of you having to actually cultivating what you planted and eating from it?
No,
not
at all.
Really.
But I would really love to go back into it. I've been nursing, having a plant and trying to nurture them and watch them grow. I've been having that thought, but I think I'm going to put it into action.
As a growing child, Simbiat, I had this fun in me, seeing plants grow, having to wake up in the morning, get to water them, and then you get to sleep seeing maybe 3 leaves and 2 branches, and waking up the next morning, you see 1 more extra branch and maybe 2 leaves, trying to see how to grow, and the plants keep germinating. At a point in time as a child, I told my parents, I planted beans, just a seed of beans, and I told my parents I was going to feed them, from that beans that I actually planted. But how
how many sacks of beans do you have now?
Well, that's actually where the concern is, because I think it died gradually. Maybe because there was something I did not do. Maybe because there was something my parents did not do, to nurture, to help that interest to grow. Maybe also because the country we found ourselves.
Nature, maybe the soil or.
Yeah, exactly. All of those actually were part of it. But I know that in my place, people still grow beans. People still grow onion. They have a means of having to do this, and they grow. I have a place where I come from in Akwa Ibom State where we grow rice, and people are actually doing that as a source of income, and they have it grow and they cultivate it in bags and they get to sell it.
Generally in Nigeria today, and even in Africa, agriculture is a booming business because there is literally nothing that can happen without food, and really agriculture would provide food, both plants, both livestock, and any kind of food you may think of. Agriculture has to very important.
And the concern for me even more is that aspect where we have to cultivate, and it is enough for us to feed on in Nigeria and then even get to export it.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to delve into this issue very deeply and then get to talk about it very intensely, so that we can see if today we can actually have agriculture and then tomorrow we can have it enough for us to be able to export. But of course, in the discussion today, we are going to go back to what happened some days ago, basically on Friday, June 12th, the Democracy Day, where we saw a whole lot of demonstrators take on the streets to protest the worsening hardship and growing insecurity. And it turned the day meant to celebrate democracy and its progress into a call for urgent government demonstration. Protesters took marches on the streets of Lagos, Abuja, and many other states with placards, and they chanted slogans that demanded solutions to rising cost of living, unemployment, name them, and they described it as the inability of democracy to deliver meaningful improvement to the lives of ordinary Nigerians. Now, the demonstration formed part of a broader nationwide action by civil society groups marking the June 12th anniversary that is widely regarded as a symbol of Nigeria's democratic struggle to something that became Nigeria's Day for Demonstration. So, President Bola Tinubu, in his Democracy Day address, had urged Nigerians to remain united, remain calm, and continue believing in the democratic institutions. But many protesters actually came up insisting that more than 2 decades of uninterrupted civilian rule must now translate into improved security. Very importantly, security, because of course we have a whole lot of Nigerians in the forest, and some do not even know where they are. They also sought for economic stability and a better living condition for Nigerians. Well, it is also worthy of note that these demonstrators actually had a peaceful demonstration. However, they were somehow, stopped from some places by the security body. So, Simbet, what do you see about the security situation in our country, the economic instability and the better living conditions of Nigerians in very close range with the celebration of the Democracy Day, June 12th, and the protest that came up?
Okay, I'll speak as a very concerned Nigerian that I am. Of course, we all, except we want to, without sugarcoating anything, we all know the situation of the economy in Nigeria right now. We all know that although democracy is being celebrated, but the dividends of this democracy, we can't see it, or maybe we can't feel it enough. Everybody thinks that, the economy is supposed to have been better. It's been like 27 years ever since the democracy day. So why are we still where we are? Why have they not been like impressive improvements and then that we can see and actually look back to? So I think everybody's concern is valid. If anybody comes out to say he or she wants to protest, it's valid. If you want to do it at the comfort of your home with your phone and do it online, is valid as well, as long as you're a Nigerian and you're speaking up and you're doing it the right way by not causing any chaos or by not being rough about it, then I think it's valid.
Well, hundreds of Nigerians actually marched in cities as Lagos, and they protested the economic hardship, they protested inflation, and they also protested unemployment, in as much as they talked about the
and also rising food prices.
Yeah, of course, it is actually a concern. Protesters actually argued that over 25 years of uninterrupted democratic rule should have produced better living conditions for Nigerians. Unfortunately, the case is different in Nigeria. And then President Bola Ahmed Tinubu called for national unity and faith in democratic institutions while defending his reform agenda. And that is another aspect that we are going to look at. The president actually came out to speak on that day, and he said that Nigerians should stay calm and really have a thought about the democratic rule, and also have a deep thought about defending the reforms in his agenda. But quite fortunately or unfortunately, we must say that we can recall that the president, now seated as the leader, as the number one man in the country, had at some point in time protested. He led a protest against the Jonathan-led government, and that was back then in 2012. It was on the between 2nd and 14th of January 2012, and there was a protest he led, and today we are actually seeing people actually leading protests against the sitting president.
Protest is not even a new thing in Nigeria. Of course, we all were here when the NSAS protest happened, and I think that's one of the reasons why we do not even have as much Nigerians out there on that Democracy Day, because everybody we were like trying to put our heads down, especially as we witnessed all what happened during the NSAS protest. So people were trying to lay low. If not, it would have been more than what we saw. It would have been way more than that, because many people would gladly come out. Because aside from the economic instability that we talked about, there's also the issue of the insecurities that we are facing in Nigeria, the banditry, the kidnapping, and the likes. Those ones are even way more concerning than even food prices, because at the end of the day, it is always alive and stable that can actually think of buying food or going to the market. So these things are very concerning to us as Nigerians, and of course everybody has the right to express their feelings or their grievances to the government.
On the 29th of May 2023, the president came and said fuel subsidy is gone, and that began to have economic reforms in our country, Nigeria, where first and foremost what we realized was that a lot of petrol stations had to cease their sellings, because they were waiting to hear the new price so that they can also inflect the prices for them, because of course they never knew when they'll return to the depot what it will cost there. So from there, we started seeing economic hardship, and that is again another concern for us as we talk about these protests. The protesters had to come out to say you have to look forward to your economic reforms and see how to make lives better for Nigerians. And so it is actually in this administration that it has been said that we should maintain the policy, and the policy is becoming very painful. But of course, somehow the president came to say that it is for a long-term economic stability. So I would not know exactly when the long-term economic stability will come, but the first 4 years we've seen have passed. Under the APC rule, we have had the first 8 years by the late President Muhammad Buhari, and today we have had 3 years and some months, into the next election, which we are gradually getting into, and we do not know what next will happen in Nigeria. And these are concerns for us, and no wonder the protesters had to go out on the 12th of June to say it is enough, and not even wanting to delve into the security situation, because we are hoping that one of these days we'll have a security personnel sit here with us, or an expert, so that we can together x-ray the security situation of our country, Nigeria. But moving from here and the protests now to the other concerns in Nigeria, where there has been fresh debate that has emerged over taxation after the International Monetary Fund, IMF, advised the federal government to introduce excise duties on telecommunications services and extend the value-added tax to fuel products as part of efforts to boost revenue. So the IMF said additional tax reforms, they said it would help create fiscal space for development spending and social interventions, and also recommended greater use of digital technology to tax or to improve tax administration and reduce revenue leakages. Then the recommendation, however, has sparked strong opposition from telecommunications subscribers, who argue that the sector is already burdened by more than 40 different taxes and levies. The one that imposing a new charge or charges would further increase the cost of communication for millions of Nigerians, even as the IMF has urged the government to ensure adequate social protection measures put in place before implementing any additional tax reforms. Here again we go, where some months ago I was just waking and I saw some levies added. I think it's not yet up to a year when we had to start sending text messages for 6 naira, from the previous 4 naira, and that was just a few months away from the 2 naira it used to be, per text message. And gradually it is actually going where you cannot even use your data. You have a subscription done maybe for a month, and you get to use it for just 2 weeks. And then before now it used to be at some sort of rate, but it has been inflated. Even
call credits, even airtimes now.
Yes, exactly.
Before you would recharge 100 naira and then you would use it for hours, but now it barely even lasts for just few seconds and then it's gone. Imagine now IMF requesting that or suggesting that more taxes are added, and you're like, are we going forward or are we going backward? We are talking about improving the economic stability of Nigeria, and then we still have to be paying more taxes than we already have. So I think I don't know what to say, but I'm just really hoping that Nigerians are considered, very, very, very considered in all of this, so that it doesn't become too unbearable for us.
This is where we talk about millions of Nigerians having to make some payment, and at the end of the day it still falls back on not being able to assess what you have actually paid for. Recently in Nigeria we have seen the rising cost even in the tariff that we pay for electricity, and you do not assess
on all sectors.
Yes, you do not even assess.
In fact, on almost everything. That's the food.
Yes, exactly. So but maybe apart from the food, because of when you go to the market, you would assess the food you eat.
If you go to restaurants, you pay VAT, and the VAT is even, you look at it and you're wondering that this VAT can even buy you another plate of food.
Exactly.
So you have to pay.
So the concern is for food, you could actually assess the food, but maybe let's talk about
electricity, water.
Where you actually pay, but you do not assess it. And this is actually a call again to the government to see that we do not pay for what we do not gain from what we do not have. Nigerians are actually concerned. Recently, it was said that for those who are in Band A, they will have some sort of compensation for the period they did not have power supply. And again, the questions were asked, why would it be just for Band A users?
And not across all?
Yeah, what happened to other Nigerians? What happened to the Band B? What happened to the Band C? And maybe till Band Z, if there is any like that. But in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there is no band. There is equality. Okay, so but in making it in bands, it now means that we have inequality in the society. So those that are Band A users,
they do not feel more superior to it's just electricity that every Nigerian should even have right to.
Yes, so we are actually concerned about this. And again, maybe it takes again to why Nigerians had to go out to protest that we should look forward to having everything that the government had promised us. But let's go now to business before we get to wrap up this morning gradually, where we'll stay with business, and this is as it concerns the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, which is actually moving closer to becoming a publicly traded company as it seeks to raise around $1 billion through a private share placement. The fundraising exercise values the refinery at approximately $39 billion, with 3 billion ordinary shares being offered to investors and demand reportedly already exceeding $2 billion. So the funds, they say, are expected to support expansion projects, including the investment on logistics, storage, and distribution infrastructure, as well as future petrochemical development. And then it is here that my concern is Symbiote, where industry analysts have also seen the move as a major step towards the refinery's anticipated stock market listing later this year. And this is following its rapid growth since commercial fuel production began sometime in 2024, and its increasing role in reducing Nigeria's reliance on imported petroleum products. Here we go again, where we are having the petroleum products being talked about, and again we are still talking about the same man, Dangote, and it looks as though we do not have what it takes to be able to own a refinery. So Nigeria is becoming that country that will rely on just one man to be able to give us what we need, which is as essential as the petroleum product.
No, Dangote Refinery has been scaling up, like you read, since 2024, and now in 2026, we still not have a reduced fuel price. We still not have it better. It still feels like we are still going round and round in circles, because if we have someone like Dangote producing petroleum in Nigeria and we still have to buy it at these exorbitant prices, it still does not make sense to the average Nigerian on the streets, who is maybe a motorcycle rider or maybe a keke rider, because it still has to pay the same amount of money that even those that drive bigger cars pay. So it still does not, it doesn't feel the impact or feel the effect. So I think that we should actually look into it and also make sure that the prices are very subsidized, that even the average Nigerians, they can actually feel the impact of having a refinery in Nigeria.
But what would be exactly the effect? Because again, when you mentioned that
reduced price, that would be the effect. Let's go back to
one refinery in Nigeria cannot. We are over 250 million Nigerians.
Yeah.
And we cannot have just one refinery feed the entire nation. And this is again the concern that we're having. In 2023, when the president said that fuel subsidy is gone, a month later, I think that was sometime on the 12th of June, even before, I think that was the day, 12th of June or thereabout, the president came out to say that we have been able to recover over 400 billion naira from the subsidy removal. Okay, so a question was, where would this money be going to? And the answer came still from the presidency that it will go back to fixing up our refineries. And we are having concerns that we have not had anything from them. We were promised sometime December 2023. We moved to sometime in 2024. And today we are not hearing that story ever again, come up to bear. So Nigerians are concerned that we are talking about the Dangote refinery, whom we know He's the sole proprietor, is his business, and then we are having that refinery probably for now feed Nigerians, or over 250 million Nigerians, and we are still having to export our petroleum product and then import these refined products back in Nigeria, which is not supposed to be, when we have 3 refineries that are, just wasting in Nigeria. And these are concerns for us. So we would probably, in the course of our discussions, get to seek and ask what is happening to our refineries, the 3 refineries we have in Nigeria. What is the state of the Port Harcourt refinery that was said to be at completion state and about to start? And again, what should be done to make sure that we have these refineries up to speed? Maybe from there, we'll just have you think about the fiscal policy, but now moving over to migration. But we still tell you that South Africa has stepped up. And what have they stepped up on? The repatriation of undocumented foreign nationals. And this is following the surge in anti-immigrant protests across the country. Authorities have come to say that about 2,745 foreigners have been repatriated within just 1 week after the President Cyril Ramaphosa pledged stronger action against illegal immigration while condemning mob violence that targeted migrants. And so here again we go. Just before we go this morning, South Africa had a game to play, and that was the opening game against Mexico. And unfortunately for them, they were actually trashed. And we saw Nigerians coming out to say, in fact, not Nigerians, Africans in general, coming out to say it was good that South Africa were actually beaten, and then South African goalkeeper came on to say, no, we are always one Africa, but today we saw that African countries were actually up against us, and this was actually call for concern. Why wouldn't Nigerians, why wouldn't Malawans, why wouldn't Zimbabweans actually, be against you when you have been actually asking them to go home? But again, there is a major concern about it, where they have said that some of the people in the country were not well documented to have left their own country to South Africa. And so that is a call again to Nigerians: if you're traveling, make your papers ready and then go in legally.
Not even Nigerians, Africans in general, Africans because we are very fond of going through the illegal routes, migrating through the illegal route. So I think it's a good call. Everybody should come back home and let's sit down and make our country work rather than running off to other countries.
But again, we cannot just all be in Africa, in Nigeria. So as African countries, we have seen some African countries begin to say that their routes are open for other African citizens to come into their country. And so this is actually a call for all of us that we should get ready and do the needful in as much as we try to see how to build Africa. And that is where we'll draw the curtain today on Razep Africa show of Razep Media on Global TV. It has been a wonderful time, and we hope that you stay good and stay well. Simbia Tamzat, it has been good being with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. See you too. We hope to return back tomorrow with more exciting news.
We'll be here again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of our broadcast. God bless Nigeria. Good morning.